Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. Here I am at Julius Caesar's camp in Wimbledon, London. How do we know it's Julius Caesar's camp? Well, we don't, but that's the name it was given. In the 18th century, some antiquarians were digging around here and they found some ancient Roman artifacts, and they simply decided this must have been where Julius Caesar camped out. If you know much about classical history, you may be aware that Julius Caesar, when he was a consul conquering Gaul, he invaded Britannia, that's this island, because the Celtic tribes here were assisting their kith and kin in Gaul, that's France. So for two successive summers, 54 and 53 BC, he came to this island in the campaigning season, and so there were Roman artifacts here, but also much more ancient artifacts dating from about 700 BC from the ancient British people. And did he camp in Wimbledon? I have no idea. There's a slight chance that he did. He crossed the River Thames near Kew, getting into Brentford. That's fairly well attested. There's quite a detailed description. We can't be certain of that. There's quite a high chance. Where exactly he forded the river is not that obvious, but you know, the River Thames is quite shallow, quite narrow at that point, and it doesn't appear to have changed course very much there because of the stone around it. It can't meander very much. So that's that. There's also a memorial at Brentford where we think he forded the river and defeated some of the ancient Britons. Anyway, Julius Caesar, the Roman Geezer as we called him, he then returned to Gaul. He chose not to conquer this country. He wrote the Gallic Wars, a memoir of his time fighting in Gaul, Gallic being the adjective of Gaul, and he wrote them in the third person. Julius Caesar did that, then someone told Julius Caesar, then Julius Caesar said whatever. Perhaps he thought it made it more credible rather than having written it in the first person. What else about Julius Caesar? When he landed on this island, according to himself, at Pevensey Bay, he was getting out of his ship and he stumbled and he fell on the shingle beach. And the Romans were very superstitious in those times. They thought it was an inauspicious portent. However, he retrieved the situation and instantly turned it to his advantage by saying to his men, "Look, I have seized this country with both hands," as in his hands were on the ground, supporting himself. By a curious chance, precisely the same story is told was told about William the Conqueror when he landed 1,100 years later at roughly the same spot. Presumably some medieval chronicler deliberately put a fallacy in there, or indeed did William the Duke of Normandy simply reenact a story he heard about Julius Caesar? Thing is, by the 11th century AD, there were not many copies of these classical texts. There were only a handful of these handwritten manuscripts around, so he may not have been aware of it. He wasn't a terribly bookish person, though he was literate, William the Duke of Normandy. What else? So Julius Caesar, he decided that Britannia was not worth conquering. He returned to Gaul. Then he later crossed the Rubicon. That was the river dividing Gaul from Italy. So he broke the law and he decided he would lead his troops out of his province into Italy without permission. And that's why we had the expression crossing a Rubicon, as in there's no going back. Alea jacta est, as he said. The die is cast. So he was going to go to Rome in a bid to win dictatorial power, which he did. But we all know what happened to him. Beware the Ides of March. Beware, as the soothsayer said to him, according to Suetonius's, is it Life of the 12 Caesars, he writes that in. So that's Julius Caesar's camp, where he is unlikely to have camped. But if you ever come to Wimbledon, it's here, part of the Royal Wimbledon Golf Course. There definitely are earthworks of an Iron Age fort. That's enough for the moment.